All right. We are officially live. We are live. Welcome. So I'm Calvin Correli, founder of Simplero. I got Kasim here with me. Uh, Kasim was our head of marketing a few years ago, 2018, at Simplero, and man, I really appreciate you, and I really appreciate that you're taking the time to come on here. Kasim is someone that you live in Scottsdale, right? And would you call yourself a prepper?
Well, I would because I use that term not as a pejorative.
Yeah,
So a
it's
lot
not a
of people,
pejorative. No,
yeah, well, I don't
no,
think so either. But
no.
a lot of people hear prepper, see prepper, whatever, and they think, oh, you're just crazy. But I think the problem is it's been so improperly contextualized.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm a person who is willing to acknowledge the existence of certain eventualities and
Mm-hmm.
prepare for them. So honestly, if you have life insurance, you're a prepper.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just now we're just talking about the degrees to which you are willing to prepare yourself.
All
So
right.
yeah, I'd call myself a prepper.
All right. Cool. So I want to get your perspective on like how bad this can get and stock market and things like that, and whatever else updates you have that you've since last time we spoke. But first, I want to set the stage because like there's a lot. It's easy to get scared right these days with everything that's going on. I'm not. I'm
Sure.
not scared. Are you scared?
I'm not scared. No,
No.
I'm
You're.
interested.
Yeah. Me too. Like we've
Yeah.
never been in a situation like this before. Like it's magic, right? Last time something like this happened was 100 years ago, and now we have the internet. Like things are completely different. It's
Yeah.
yeah. It's super interesting what's going to happen. So what I want to do is I want to set the stage by just doing a minute of gratitude. Are you up for that?
Dude, I love that.
All
Let's
right.
do that. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So here's what we're going to do. So sit comfortably. Close your eyes. Take a couple deep breaths. I like to have my palms up in my lap, and then here we go. Just a couple deep breaths in through your nose, out through your mouth. And then ground it here. Just think of some situation, some moment, something in your life that you could be grateful for. Like some situation that could have happened this morning or a month ago or years ago, centuries ago, something that you've experienced that you could be super grateful for right now if you wanted to. And just picture that. Picture yourself in the scene and allow yourself to feel the gratitude. Put your hands on your heart. Just seal that in for a minute, for a moment. All right, let's get back. So I like to do that just because, you know, it's so important to remember everything that we have to be grateful for, right? That you know, with everything that's going on and people being scared and freaking out and all that stuff, like there's more to be grateful for than there is to not be grateful for. And like we live in the most exciting times to be alive,
Yeah.
to be a human ever, right? We really do.
Yeah.
Most amazing time. There's more opportunity. There's more that we can do. There's more ways that we can contribute, take control over our own lives than ever before in history. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more, man. We have access to so much. Just to be honest, this seems like small and obscure, but I think it's a really big deal. Just think about the food
Mm,
that you get to taste. You know what I mean? Like that's such an important part of the human experience.
mm,
And like right now I can go get anything that I want for $15. Like I have access to more food than like 100 years ago, the wealthiest person on the planet didn't have access to what I have access to now.
right.
Um, you turn on a switch and the lights go on, and then you lift a nozzle and water comes out, and yeah, and I think life is amazing.
Well, and the
But
difference between like I have an iPhone, right? I know you probably have an Android device, but like
soul,
the quality. What did you say?
I said I have a soul, so
the like the best device that money can buy is the same whether you're, a billionaire or you're just, you and I,
Yep.
right? Like, um, yeah,
Yeah, everybody talks about like the widening of the gap, but man, there's been a lot of flattening too. And I'm not dismissing
right,
some of that because there's some merit to pieces
for
of that
sure.
argument. But I think we should pay attention to what you just said too, which is, man, there's not a whole lot we don't get. It's the same entertainment, same nutrition, same information, same education. Like people, everything is so accessible.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right. So tell me, like, what is your take? So you're talking about food. People are obviously shopping all kinds of shelf-stable stuff, beans and pasta, and as well as meat and all kinds of things, right? Like in the supermarkets, and toilet paper. What is your take on it? Should everybody go out and shop like crazy, or?
Well, so I can tell you, I know this with as much clarity as can be relied upon based on the data that's available. But there's no food shortage, period.
Right.
So every grocery store on the planet runs on just-in-time inventory because that's the most efficient way to run. Because the square footage, the price per square foot of the grocery store is far more expensive than whatever warehouse they're delivering the stuff from. So,
Right.
and you'll actually even notice, even in some of the hot spots, like I've got friends and family up in Seattle, Washington, and they're catching up. I mean, there's toilet paper available.
Whoa!
It's just,
Whoa.
yeah. Oh my goodness!
Did you see
I
the
love that. That's
meme?
where we
Did
went
you see
to,
that
by the way.
meme? Did you see the
No,
meme with
what was
pair of earrings, made with the most precious material known to man, and then there's like 2 rolls of toilet paper on tiny rolls of toilet paper on earrings. It's so good.
Dude, the toilet paper thing is it's the best example of how horrible we are at even understanding what a dire situation is.
Right.
Because if the shit really hit the fan, you'd be going after water, ammo, penicillin. Right. You know what I mean? The fact that like, oh my god, what am I gonna do? I promise you can live without toilet paper. It might not be comfortable,
Right.
but that is not. I mean, in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you know what I mean? Like that just doesn't exist. It doesn't
No.
register.
I lived in India for a while. They don't use toilet paper. They just use their left hand. It works.
Got it. Yeah, that's why you shake with the right, and you got the little bucket, and yeah, you get good at that.
Yeah.
Europeans have their bidets. Good for
Right.
them.
I grew up with one. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think that I don't think food is an issue. We have no infrastructure failure. Period.
Mm-hmm. Do you think we might have like when people? I mean, can people keep going to work at the water supply or the warehouses and all that stuff?
That'll be mandated. I think there'll be federal mandates, state mandates that make sure that I mean air traffic controllers are going to be in the sky. Road workers,
might
etc.
have some staggered schedules or something like that to minimize the risk.
Well, if you really think about it, what's interesting is everybody else has gotten out of the way. So unlike other potential pandemics where earthquake, hurricane, tornado, that actually moves, shifts, changes infrastructure. All this does is keep everybody inside. So the hurdles
I'm
that
saying,
you would
like if you have a warehouse with like 100 people are working in close proximity, you might want to space that out a little bit over time. Or
100%. Yeah, and they will. I think they're taking care of that. But I don't think most of our infrastructure relies on things like that. I mean, it's not like we're not so coal dependent that the coal miners aren't going to be able to go. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And also like when it comes to food, right? So my wife and I were joking that they shut down the gyms, but not the grocery stores, right? Like, I mean, I think every single American would be better off with a week or two where they don't eat, but just go to the gym, right? Just fast for a couple of weeks. Nobody dies from fasting for a couple of weeks.
This is the best political platform everywhere.
Right.
You guys are going to be fine not eating for 2 weeks.
Keep the gyms open, like exercise every day, but don't eat. Like that would be that would take down the health costs in this country right there.
Oh, yeah.
In 2 weeks, right? We would be so much healthier.
More people would be saved from the exercise than would be lost to the coronavirus,
right.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will tell you the one risk, and I'm not being a fearmonger, but you asked, and that's part of this conversation. I think that if somebody were really trying to mess with the country right now, so you get some terrorist cell out there that wants to get super creative, the way to do it would be to go after an infrastructure, a piece of major infrastructure. So, sullying water, transportation, communication, grids, water being probably the most vulnerable and most likely. I think if they wanted to go, pull a Flint, Michigan, but make it intentional, that would cause some issues. It takes 2 major infrastructure failures in order to cause a collapse, and we don't have one right now.
Explain that.
So this is all rooted in prepper theory, right? But if you look at, and this goes all the way back, this is like pre-electricity. If you go back to like, Greco-Roman times, and then you analyze every society that's ever had a major fallout, even societies that have come back. I mean, it's happened in Germany a couple of times. It's happened in South America in different ways. Sometimes the U.S. was responsible for it, sadly. But the commonly accepted rule of thumb is one major infrastructure failure, you can survive.
Like, would that be like water infrastructure or?
Yeah,
or
well, and
like,
it depends on the country. So, like for the U.S., for instance, rail is really important. But if you go to, and I'm pulling something out of thin air. I don't know if this is true, but if you go to Denmark, I don't know how important rail is to Denmark. So that might not be major infrastructure because there might not be that much transit on rail. Shipping is just so vitally important to certain countries, especially in East Asia. So one major infrastructure failure, you can survive. Two major infrastructure failures, and you have collapse or potential collapse. And the things that are categorized as major infrastructure, this is where this whole theory kind of collapses a little bit from an academic perspective because it's subjective. Like I think personally, fiscal policy is infrastructure. So like the U.S. dollar, for instance, is at major risk right now because the Fed is hemorrhaging money and lowering interest rates, and God only knows what can happen there. But I think we're okay, and I think we'll continue to be okay. I'm not worried about coronavirus at all. I'm not a doctor by any means, but I've read the data. I've seen the curve. I totally understand the whole point of social distancing. I think we will survive that with relative ease. I'm worried about the way that people respond when they're worried.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, that was like 9/11 killed 3,000 people, right? But it got into like a war that's lasted almost 20 years now.
Well, it's such a good point too, because a month after 9/11, we lost 10% of our civil rights.
Right.
The Patriot Act wiped away 10% of our civil rights.
Completely. Yeah.
Just like that. And I mean, did you see what they're trying to pass now? Congress just passed. It's a surveillance law. This was yesterday. They just passed. It's bipartisan too. You ever notice how much they agree on stuff that works against nothing but limiting our rights? Anytime there's an issue like this that occupies the collective psyche, you'll notice that they start getting together and passing all this bullshit. So there's this new surveillance law that just passed.
That's the deep state at work, essentially? Like the government bureaucracy, just like unelected officials that want to push this thing through, and then, I mean, obviously elected officials have to vote for it, right?
That's what I was going to say. I don't think it's as deep as the deep state. I don't know if I believe in the deep state as much as I believe in open air conspiracy. Like the Federal Reserve, open air conspiracy.
But deep state is open.
Electoral college, also open air conspiracy.
Deep state is open air too, but it's like when I say deep state, I just mean the sort of the people in government that have their own agenda that are not the people's agenda. Right.
Yeah, I don't think there's like the hidden hands and the five families and any of those things, but I absolutely think that there's a concerted effort to push issues forward on us that aren't in our best interest, and they use things like this to do it. You're going to see a ton of bullshit legislation passed. Bet anything. I mean, we've already seen it, so that's a fact. And every single time, September 11th, insane legislation gets passed. Yeah, and they're just gonna keep doing that. So that's something to keep your eye on. That's a risk. Yeah.
Well, what do we do about that?
Dude, I don't know. Well, what you do is not have a government this size. Like anything this big, there's no watchdog.
Right.
So I don't know that I have that answer. I don't think that something this big is salvageable long term, and I don't know what that means. I mean, it could be a millennia from now, but I don't think you can. And Nassim Nicholas Taleb talks about this really well in Anti-Fragile, which might be one of the best books ever written. But he talks about like the small micro adjustments that life needs to make in order to allow an evolutionary chain to be efficient, and how anytime anything is too big to fail, those micro adjustments aren't allowed. And I think our government is among can be counted in that number.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, yeah. I remember I saw this talk on YouTube a while back with Milton Friedman, who's obviously dead now, but where he was like, when he was young, the entire economy, like the entire government was only about, I think it was like 10% of the entire economy, right? And that was local, it's state, it's federal, it's, sales taxes, everything, just 10%. That's it. And that's kind of all we need, like, honestly, right? Like, the rest of it, we do better ourselves. Like, right now, you see so many people innovating around the coronavirus, right? Private companies coming up with vaccines and like pushing that through, or like just experimenting, or like health training is just like helping each other, supporting each other. That's what we do as humans, right? We're innovative, we're creative, we figure shit out, right? We don't need the government to mandate it.
No, well, all they do is get in the way. I mean, more often than not, there's some regulatory bodies that I think are necessary. I think what we've done to the environment, for instance, could probably be tempered and might need some, legislative body. But for the most part, they just ruin everything. Yeah. No, prior to 1917, the entire federal government operated off of tariffs, man. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was all their income was just tariffs.
Right. Was that? And now that was like pre-prohibition, right? That was all like 40% of revenue came from taxes on alcohol or something like that. Yep. And then when the prohibition happened, they instituted the income tax, and then after prohibition, they forgot to repeal it somehow. I don't know what happened. Oh, it just didn't get around to it or something.
Well, now they're the biggest employer, the biggest buyer, the biggest seller. There's just I love this country with everything inside of me, and I'm passionate about it. But I don't consider that to be the government. I think the government is this parasitic entity that lives on top of the United States. Not doesn't prop it up. Like the U.S. is this feeling, this endeavor that we're all a part of, and then you just have these worthless sacks of nothing. Have you ever looked at any of these people's resume? These career politicians, they've built nothing, created nothing, developed nothing, they've written nothing. The only accolades they have are it's just one big circle jerk. Like, I give you a medal, you give him a medal, he gives me a medal. They're just a bunch of academics. Yeah. Sorry, kids. Yeah, but I mean, dude, it's just like so appalling how inept these humans are.
Yeah. And so when I moved here from Denmark, coming to America from Denmark, and I love this country, as well, like very, very, very much. Right. I was surprised how socialist this is. I kind of knew that it was inept, but I didn't know just how socialist this place is. Like, starting a business is so much easier in Denmark. Hiring people is easier. Yep. Firing people to some extent is easier. It's just like, it's much more fluid. Like, just way less regulation. Ultimately more capitalist, honestly, which is hugely surprising to me after I started a company here. Tell me what is your outlook on the economy? And what to do at this point as an investor? I'm in the market. I didn't sell my stock, even though my gut told me I probably should. And now I'm like, okay, do I want to sell at this point? I just hang on to them, right? I know that you told me that you'd shorted the market.
Dude, I had three triple short ETFs purchased, and I did.
What's a triple short?
It means that if the market, just slimming it down, if the market drops by a point, a short would get you 1 point up. So the market goes down 1 point, you get 1 point up. Mm. A triple short means if the market goes down 1 point, you get 3 points. Oh, wow. But if the market goes up, you go down 3 points. So it's a stupid gamble. You shouldn't do this regularly.
Is that leveraging?
Or yes. Yeah. That's exactly right.
Okay.
So I just had to call it a hunch. I buy into the triple shorts. I can tell you exactly. It's in my E-Trade, but I think early.
Was it after the coronavirus had started to happen?
It was pre-coronavirus. I thought that the consumer debt crisis ball was going to drop sometime mid-2020. Mm-hmm. So I was buying in anticipation of that. Mm-hmm. And I just happened to luck into the coronavirus. But I did the dumbest thing, man. I sold the day before the big drop. So we had the biggest drop we've ever had since 1987 or whatever. Mm. And I sold the day before. I mean, I made 20%, but I could have made 2,000%.
Right.
And I don't know what the real numbers are. But the day after that, there was a massive rebound, and it would have wiped out all my earnings. So
how does that work when you? I've never shorted a stock. So how does that? You buy that thing. You pay money right now to buy that thing, and then can you decide when you want to cash it in?
Oh, yeah. So the shorts that I buy, it's not actually a short per se. You're actually purchasing a stock. It's an ETF. It's purchasing a fund. Mm-hmm. And I bought 3, SDOW, SPXS, and SPXU. Mm-hmm. And you can only lose as much as you invest, which is nice because a lot of shorts, your loss is potentially limitless. Right. But you're basically buying a stock that's a fund that is then spreading your investment across other shorted funds. And actually, right now, all 3 of those are both. One's down 15%, one's down 18%, one's down 8%. So because the Dow just made a big resurgence, I might buy again because I think what we just saw is a dead cat bounce. I don't think I think it's going to get much worse before it gets any better.
What's your take? Like
Dude, well, first of all,
down 1/3, right? Essentially, I mean, we're 22,000 now or something. Like we were down from 30, so we're almost a third down. How far is it going to go down?
I think it could get worse than 08. What was 08? Do you remember? Was it 13,000 or something? Like, I mean, we could. It could get really bad, and here's why I'm saying that. It's not the coronavirus that can get really bad. It's the fact that we already had this. There was a cliff coming. The consumer debt crisis, the corporate debt crisis, the amount of money that we've.
Tell us about those, like the consumer debt crisis and the corporate debt crisis. I'm not. Privy
Okay, so most of what I know, I'm stealing from Ray Dalio. So just forgive my regurgitation. But he's also the smartest.
Can we get him on?
Yeah, we should. Dude, this is the guy that predicted our financial collapse. He saved Europe from their own. Like, this is the smartest financial mind in the whole wide world. Get this, Calvin. Here's a guy who's now in the giving back phase of his life. And he wrote a book called How to Survive a Big Debt Crisis. And then he gave it away to everybody for free. And basically, money has been so cheap for so long, which is sometimes okay. Sometimes you use that to catalyze growth. But instead of using it for growth mechanisms, what companies started to do, now it's even cheaper, which is worse. Now we're going to see hyperinflation. Right. So all of us that are liquid, good job saving your money, kid. It's not going to be worth half what it was worth.
All right.
And dude, I'm going to show you some crazy stuff here in a second if you have any interest, because I can prove market manipulation. But anyway, so all these corporations and people, we all have access to this free money. And normally the idea, the economic theory would be that if you have money, you go in and you invest it, you build a business, you hire employees, you do things that create more money. Well, what everybody did was hunker down, basically, and start playing a long-term yield game, among other things. And so we have unserviceable debt, and not a little bit. We have more unserviceable debt than can be serviced with the amount of money that's in the economy. So we're on a teeter-totter with a fat kid that just died, and it's never going to lose any weight.
Wait. So walk me through that. So when you say that debt is not serviceable, it means so people have collectively borrowed, what are we talking about? Trillions?
Well, I mean, between the government, corporations, and individual people, and we are the government. So yeah, if you look at our national debt, we are never, ever, ever going to pay that back, ever.
Right, that's not the 21 trillion number or whatever that is up to. But then the consumer debt, how much is that up to? Do you know?
I have no idea, but I mean, it's more per capita than it's ever been in the history of the world. And again, that's not serviceable. I mean, look at how much.
And what does it mean it's not serviceable?
Well, so if you lend a kid,
there's no way to pay it back. Is that what
there's no way to pay it back? And it's not serviceable on a micro level, and it's not serviceable on a macro level. So on a micro level, you lend a kid $100,000 to go to college, and he gets a job that pays him $12 an hour.
Right.
Non-serviceable debt. And then these cronies made it so that you can't BK education debt, you can't BK medical debt, which is indentured servitude. That goes. You can't declare bankruptcy and wipe your education debt. Yeah. Which we just imprisoned all these kids. They're in prison, basically.
The whole student loan thing is bizarre, right? Once it's a complete scam, right? Once the government guarantees the loans, the interest rates drop, and then what happens to the underlying asset price? It goes up, right? So tuitions just go up, and who profits from that? Universities do. So that's
the quality of the education just plummeted. Oh, kids don't learn shit.
No, it's terrible.
Pardon me.
It's 4 years of partying.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's worthless. But somewhat why the government needs to be in that business of making universities rich is beyond me.
Well, it's lobbyists, man. That's what I'm saying again. A government this size can't sustain. Right. It's not. It defies the laws of political science and physics.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, you're saying that we were already headed towards a cliff, and now coronavirus.
We were already headed towards a cliff, and now coronavirus is every major airline in the country is probably going to need to declare bankruptcy. They won't, because that's a national security risk. So you know what's going to happen? You and me are going to own airlines as American taxpayers, because there's going to be an airline bailout. Banks, there's going to be a ton of debt forgiveness. Banks are going to have to declare bankruptcy. They won't, because they're too big to fail. So we're going to go own banks again. This is going to cause, and then I read the other day, yesterday, it was a really compelling article, in spite of who put it out, and I won't say their name because I don't like them, but 50% of all American jobs are at moderate to high risk for things like cutbacks, layoffs, forced time off, etc.
Right.
So you take the hiccup that the coronavirus causes, let's say that it's just a month. Let's say that, March 27th or whatever the government decided really is the drop dead date, and we're all able to get back to it. It's already caused this kind of snowball that's going to accelerate what was going to happen, and make it harder to recoup because you have international trade issues. And then you add to that what OPEC is doing and the fact that the Saudis are just flooding the market with oil because they want to destroy Russia. And I mean, almost.
And they want to destroy American fracking, no?
I think they're going after the Russians. Because the Americans played price-setting game with the Saudis since the beginning. We've played really nice with the Saudis. The Russians haven't. And Saudi Arabia basically said, all right, you want to do this, then we're going to show you we have a limitless supply. Everybody always worries about the supply of oil. There's no worry with the supply of oil, not in our lifetime. The Saudis could just, flood the market with, and they're going to do it. They're going to flood the market with as much oil as they possibly can. So you've got the economic issue caused by the coronavirus. You've got the international trade issues that are caused by all this disruption. You've got the Saudis, and then you've got the fact that we had this massive debt crisis coming anyway. If you are liquid, and what I mean by that is if you have some amount of money, there's going to be an amazing opportunity to buy I don't know what. And that's what we're going to have to see. You're going to have to see where it starts to hurt. So it could be property, it could be stocks, it could be small businesses. If you're like, I'm in the agency space.
If I have money in cash right now, you said that's gonna lose its value, but not in the short term.
Not in the very short term. Dude, can I show you something?
Yeah.
Here's how I can prove manipulation. I can't explain this. If somebody's watching this, they can explain this to me. If there's a smarter person out there, and I'm not being combative, I really mean this. I need to know what on earth is going on. So I'm going to share my screen. Let me see how I do this. Share screen. Can you see that, Calvin?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So what do you see what we're looking at? I'll zoom in on here a little bit.
Spot prices today change, yeah.
Yeah. So gold spot price is $1,500. Before all this went down, it was $1,700. Mm-hmm. Okay. So what that means, dropped. The gold price dropped. Now, that is that's never happened. Anytime there's been any economic turmoil or any threat to the dollar, gold price goes up. Here's what's really weird. Ready for this? Watch this. Here's where I go. Oops. Here's where I go to buy my gold. Okay? And I'm going to give these guys a free plug. JM Bullion. Ready? Here's all the gold that you can buy. Note, due to extreme order volumes, please expect shipping delays. Also, we've temporarily limited to $300 orders. The best part of this whole thing, Calvin, is all the gold is out of stock. So if you want to buy any gold that isn't numismatic, if you just want to buy gold bullion, you can't buy any gold, you can't buy any silver, you can't buy any precious metals anywhere, and yet the spot price drops. And dude, you talk to a 7-year-old, if you explained supply and demand to a 7-year-old, they would understand why this makes no sense. This is irreconcilable with
come back, bring
logic.
Your face back.
Okay, how do I do that?
Stop sharing.
Sharing. Yeah.
There you go. All right. Yeah, that's interesting. I did see someone have an explanation for that. It was something to do with currency.
Yeah, you sell what you can sell.
Huh?
Yeah. No, I think what's happening is the banks are keeping precious metals artificially low because they're trying to prop up the dollar. JP Morgan is one of the largest owners of silver on the planet, between them and the Hunt brothers. So yeah, I this is market manipulation, but they can't keep it going.
So what is an investor like? What is someone who's in the market, like who owns stocks like me? What should I do with those? Just hold on to them or get rid of them?
No,
right
I think you'll be safe in blue chips. So like Johnson & Johnson, for instance, it's going to lose 30% and it'll bounce back. Like things like that. I think
have companies that I know that and use and stuff.
Well, but I'd avoid tech. Like I'd stay out of Apple, Google, Amazon. Yeah, I think you're safe in blue chips. You're going to lose some, but I think it'll come back because they're consumables.
What about cash? When is the time to get in? Well, that's what you're saying. We don't know. We'll have to see like where that SPS cap put. Because I'm thinking like what happens during a downturn, right, is that people pull back. So, well, that means companies go under. There's less competition. Advertising costs drop. So I'm kind of thinking like lean into that really heavily. Like, invest in marketing and advertising and expanding and possibly even borrowing money to do that because money's super cheap. Right?
Yeah. Well, and the market's going to favor debtors. What's going to happen is you're going to see a ton of debt forgiveness. And so, God forgive me for saying this because it sort of goes against my my philosophical inclinations, let's say, but I think that debt is a really leverageable tool at the moment. But dude, you're absolutely, there's so much opportunity right now for people that are debt free and solvent. I will say, because I've done this before, in the last collapse, I got nailed. I lost everything. You have to be a step ahead of the wave. So you can't tighten your belt. It's the day you can't afford to pay rent, it's too late.
Right.
The day before you can't afford to pay rent, you have options. So if anybody's out there and they're over leveraged, like, don't try to save the car, the house, the this, that. There's, like, cut your losses and Alamo. And then if you've got some money, if you have some liquidity, get ready to buy. I wouldn't buy too soon. You always want to buy when it's kind of coming back up, is my soft opinion.
What does that mean? Kind of coming back up?
Well, if you try to time the bottom, that's when you find that there are subsequent bottoms. But when you start to see a really solid, well-supported rebound, you're like, gosh, I had to buy 20% above the bottom. Well, who cares? You're not the first one in. I have a buddy, he's a Marine, and his favorite saying is, guys on the front lines get shot.
Right.
And that's what happens. If you're on the front line trying to time the bottom, you're going to get shot. So wait till there's some market support.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right, man. I want to wrap it up around here. Anything that you want to add?
No, I just think you're awesome, dude. I appreciate you doing stuff like this, Calvin. I think that, not everybody puts themselves out there, and not everybody has an opinion. And I've seen you from the very beginning. Just you're a real deal leader, and I really mean that. And I appreciate that about you.
Thank you, Kasim. Thank you, man. Appreciate that. I really appreciate you doing this. Like I said, I called you up on, what was it, Saturday or Sunday or something, because like you are the person that I trust and that I turn to when I'm like, hey, how worried should I be? I'm not the one to get worried, but there's always that in the back of my mind. Am I not worried enough? Should I be more worried?
That's fine. Well, the disadvantage I'm at now is this is recorded, so when I'm wrong about everything, you get to go back.
Yeah.
You clearly do not know what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing here, right? Like, nobody really knows. Like, Nassim, I've been following him on Twitter as well, Nassim Nicholas Taleb, right? And one thing he said a couple days ago was like, we're operating under the assumption that someone who had the virus and, recovered is sort of in the same state as someone who never had it. Like, do we really know that there's not some kind of permanent damage that we're not aware of yet, right? I mean,
all out.
Yeah, we don't know. There's so much we don't know. And Mike Cernovich is another one. Do you follow him?
No.
Do you know who he is?
No, I'm writing him down right now, though.
Yeah, he's a journalist. He just has a movie out now called Hoaxed, which is great. It came out last year as well, but he just re-released it. His distributor went bankrupt, and so now it's out again. It's really, really good about the media and how the media manipulates and how you can't trust it and stuff. He was one of the people that predicted a Trump victory very early on. He's great, but he was like, he saw this coming very early on as well. He was like, guys, supply chains are being disrupted. Like already back in January, he was like, guys, this is gonna have dramatic consequences for the economy of 2020. It was one of the reasons I'm like, dude, I should have taken that more seriously. And thought it through more, which I didn't. I didn't stop to think, hey, what are the consequences of this, and what actions might I take right now to based on that, right? So, yeah. But he was tweeting out of like, people lose their jobs, right? Then they can't pay rent, and then their landlord can't pay his mortgage, and then defaults on those, and the thing just is gonna keep rolling, right? The consequences of this, and for a very long time. So
we're going to be paying for this for years.
Yeah.
Did you see the Bill Gates TED Talk where he talked about how we're not prepared for the next pandemic?
No, I did not. No.
Dude, it's from 2013, and he basically just outlines this entire situation from start to finish. It's worth watching.
Wow. All right, post a link to it in the comments down here when we're done.
I'll find it.
All right.
Cool, brother.
All right. Thank you, man. I really appreciate you showing up for this.
Yeah, 100%.
And just a reminder to everybody, like, stay calm and lead. Like, focus on how you can serve other people, how you can support them and help them. I think that's the thing to do these days. Like, together as people, we're gonna get through this, right? That's how we do it. All right.
That's how we do it.
Thank you, Kasim. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
watching. See you tomorrow.
Bye, buddy.
By the way, I'm gonna do this. So my plan is to do this every day at 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. So today is a little later, but a half hour every day Monday through Friday, 10:30 Eastern, with a guest. So tomorrow we'll have Jeff Borshova, who talks about how to use masterminds in your coaching and to sort of like help you with your coaching business. So we'll see what he has to say. That should be super interesting. So
Nice.
yeah. It's a good way to kind of leverage and add more value without a lot of extra effort, so you can do more for more people in a structured way
Sure.
during these times. So yeah. All right. Thanks, man. Good talking.
Cool, brother.
Good seeing you.
See you later.
Appreciate it
You
so
too.
much. Bye.
Bye, buddy.